We have Microsoft and Alphabet today after the close. Tomorrow we have Meta. This is a stock that is up, 75% on the year. It's up a lot more than that off its lows. And then Amazon, which is, it's had a good year. It's up 24% or so, 23%. Look at the implied moves, some big implied moves, about 5% Microsoft and Alphabet tonight, 9% for Meta, and 7% for Amazon. I'm not particularly optimistic about Microsoft. Alphabet, just the underperformance relative to some of its peers. Maybe I'm a bit more okay with that one on valuation too. Meta seems very meta specific, very associated with the cost cuts that they've been kind of engaged in. And Amazon is an interesting one to me because when you think about Microsoft, Alphabet, and Amazon, one thing they all have in common are these big cloud businesses, which are really good margin drivers, which have allowed them to do a whole host of other things. And we've seen demand come down pretty dramatically, or at least decelerate, right? In those businesses that got a big pull forward during the pandemic. And so, Amazon, it's not just kind of consumer demand. It's not just issues as it relates to supply chains and inflation, but really demand for AWS and the like. So here's the guy. I want to kind of put a little trade on here. This is in the NASDAQ. This is the E-mini futures here. Sorry about that. When I look at this thing and I look at that nice little uptrend that's been in from, just below 11,000 at the lows here, and it's kind of gotten stuck here around 13,000. I want to look at a move back towards, that 200-day moving average, which looks about 12,000 or so, just below that uptrend, that we just talked about. Today, what's interesting about the NASDAQ minis here, Guy, they're just below those February highs after consolidating for, it seems like a few weeks above that, right in front of these earnings events where we know that expectations are not low because these stocks have really seen a massive flight to quality. So here's the trade. I want to sell the minis at 12,913. I want to use a stop just above yesterday's high, Guy, at 13,134. That may seem kind of tight, especially when you consider the events that we have this week, but I'm targeting a move back towards 12,000. I just kind of like the risk reward of this. I would probably continue to move that stop down below 13,000 if we get a move tomorrow there. But again, I want to trade these futures with tight stops here. We are in a market that's consolidated a lot. We have events. We have vol really low. I think the risk reward of the downside is kind of like 2 or 3 down to 1 up here.
It's interesting. I agree with this. The tight stop makes sense because there's going to be a lot of noise. So I think you have to know where your out is. But this is one that if you're right, it's going to accelerate. I think it's going to accelerate to the downside. And we've talked about this a few times here, but this is now higher level trading, but you can actually add to a short position on weakness, on the underlying weakness of the asset. So as your short position gets more in the money and this continues to go lower theoretically, you could start adding to it and then looking for that initial target. On the way down, as we've said a couple times, again, for you new listeners or viewers, you leave what you call a trailing stop. So your stop begins at a certain level, and then as the position starts to work for you, that stop gets decreased. And at a certain point, if you think about it, that stop will be low enough where you're actually guaranteed, I shouldn't say guaranteed, but in theory, guaranteed not to lose money because you're going to be stopping out around your entry point, and then you're looking at all gravy on the downside.